Vladimir Ilyich Lenin was a Russian revolutionary, politician, and political theorist who played a key role in the October Revolution of 1917. As one of the first leaders of the Soviet Union, Lenin led the Bolshevik Party to power and established the world's first socialist state. Though his life and leadership profoundly shaped 20th century history, Lenin had a somewhat ordinary upbringing before becoming one of the most influential communist figures. Lenin was born Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov on April 22, 1870 in Simbirsk, Russia, now Ulanovska. He came from a relatively affluent Russian middle-class family. His father, Ilya Nikolaevich Ulyanov, was a Russian school inspector, while his mother came from a Volga German family. Lenin showed academic promise from a young age and gained admission to Kazan Imperial University. However, his life took a tragic turn in 1887, when his older brother Alexander was executed for plotting to assassinate Tsar Alexander III. This execution had a radicalizing effect on the young Lenin and sparked his interest in political change. After being expelled from Kazan University for his political activity in 1887, Lenin moved to St. Petersburg, where he became involved in Marxist political circles. He read voraciously on political economy and was deeply influenced by the work of German socialist Ferdinand Lassalle. In 1895, Lenin joined the loose coalition of Marxist grouplets known as the Union of Struggle for the Emancipation of the Working Class. During this time, he adopted Marxism as his revolutionary ideology and became determined to bring socialist revolution to Tsarist Russia. In 1897, Lenin was arrested for his political activity and exiled to Siberia for 3 years. It was during his exile that Lenin sharpened his revolutionary ideology and turned decisively against more reformist strands of Marxism. After his exile ended in 1900, Lenin moved to Western Europe to escape Tsarist persecution and proximity to political exiles. He lived mainly in Munich, London, and Geneva over the next decade. It was during this period that Lenin greatly expanded his knowledge of Marxism and developed his own unique brand of vanguard revolutionary Leninism. He argued for a small elite party of professional revolutionaries guided by Marxist theory to lead the working class to proletarian dictatorship. Lenin also became the leader and dominant theorist of the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party, which later split into Menshevik and Bolshevik factions in 1903 over ideological disputes. In 1903, Lenin published his most important theoretical work, What is to be Done?, which outlined his concept of a revolutionary party guided by the revolutionary consciousness of intellectuals. This rejected the more evolutionary socialist theories of some like the Mensheviks. Throughout the 1900s, Lenin continued developing his ideas in leaflets, pamphlets, and journal articles while living in exile abroad. His activism played a role in sparking the 1905 Russian Revolution, though it ultimately failed to establish socialist rule. Nonetheless, the revolution marked an important step toward Lenin's ultimate goal. With World War I raging in Europe, Lenin and the Bolsheviks saw an opportunity for further revolution. In 1917, Lenin returned to Russia after 16 years in exile, enabled by the Germans who hoped to destabilize Tsarist Russia. By this point, public opposition to Russia's involvement in the war had grown virulent. On arriving, Lenin immediately began agitating for an uprising according to his revolutionary program. In October 1917, with popular and military support declining for the provisional government, Lenin masterminded the largely bloodless Bolshevik seizure of power known as the October Revolution. Once in power, Lenin immediately began constructing a socialist state according to Marxist-Leninist principles. He oversaw the establishment of a one-party totalitarian dictatorship led by the Bolsheviks with a politically dominant vanguard. Key policies included nationalization of industry, banks, and agricultural land, central state planning of the economy, and the formation of a new Bolshevik secret police force known as the Cheka. Lenin also signed a peace treaty taking Russia out of World War I and establishing the Soviet Socialist Republic. To consolidate Bolshevik power, Lenin also ordered the brutal suppression of internal opposition, including the closure of democratic assemblies and assault on the Socialist Revolutionary Party. Though Lenin instituted sweeping socialist change in a short time, He faced immense challenges including foreign intervention in the Russian Civil War, economic collapse, and widespread famine. His new economic policy from 1921 aimed to regain peasant support through limited market reforms while maintaining centralized political control. In his later years, Lenin grew increasingly concerned about ideological splintering within the Bolshevik Party and signs of growing Stalinist bureaucracy that threatened socialist objectives. In late 1922 and 1923, he suffered a series of strokes that left him partially paralyzed and withdrew from frontline politics. On January 21, 1924, Lenin died in Gorky, Russia at the age of 53 without naming a successor. Despite only governing for 6 years before his death, Lenin left an immense revolutionary legacy. As the charismatic leader of the Bolshevik Revolution, he established the first socialist state and communist party, and created an ideologically driven one-party totalitarian system that endured in the Soviet Union for over 70 years. His revolutionary blend of Marxism-Leninism inspired communist movements worldwide and shaped 20th-century global geopolitics through the ensuing East-West ideological struggle of the Cold War. Domestically, Lenin set the Soviet Union on a path of rapid industrialization, collectivization of agriculture, and centrally planned command economy that helped transform Tsarist Russia into a major world power within a few decades. Though Lenin's dictatorial methods and policies caused immense suffering, he retains a quasi-mythical status as the founder of the Soviet state among later communist regimes and many leftists today. His writings codifying revolutionary vanguard theory, imperialism, and Marxist statecraft remain influential texts. Ultimately, Lenin proved decisive in reshaping Russia from an empire into the world's first socialist state, elevating Marxism into a truly world historical ideology and ensuring his legacy as one of the most seminal figures of the 20th century. Despite later critiques, Lenin succeeded in fundamentally changing the trajectory of his homeland and the global order through visionary yet often brutal revolutionary praxis based on his interpretation of Marxism.